He was already leaning against my office door when I got the call to come in. Slim fit button down. Watch that cost more than my first car. Perfect hair, like he'd never broken a sweat in his life. I'd never seen him lift a damn box, but he sure had the posture of a man who thought he ran the world. "Hey there, darlin'," he said, like I was about to thank him for pulling me out of a ditch. Mind stepping in for a quick chat? "My name's Rachel. I'm 43 years old. Been working dispatch in Tulsa for 15 years. I don't do darlin'." He didn't sit down, just started talking like we were old friends, and this wasn't a blindside. "So we've been taking a hard look at efficiencies. Corporate's moving to an automated dispatch platform." He gave me this tight smile like it was some kind of gift. Nothing personal, just tech forward. Translation: I was out. I didn't blink, didn't ask questions. I looked past him to my desk. I could already see my notebook sitting there. Blue spiral spine, torn corner. Every damn detail of this company's long-haul routing backbone inside it. I had client freight rate tables, off-the-record lane guarantees, alternate carrier contacts I built from scratch. 10 minutes, he said, like he was being generous. 10 minutes later, I was parked in HR's cubicle with a form in front of me. My name typed under the words, "Notice of termination without cause." They handed me a canvas tote bag, company logo, one of those fake thank you notes printed on a card inside. I didn't even touch it. I signed where I had to, slid the papers back, and stood up. "Can we walk you out?" the HR rep asked, not even looking me in the eye. I didn't answer. I just walked. Straight down the hallway through the bullpen. Every eye turned, but no one said a word. Not my crew. Not even Lisa from routing, who knew damn well I was the only reason half our drivers stayed past 8:08. At my desk, I grabbed the notebook. 15 years of handwritten chaos turned gold. I didn't need a box. I didn't need a speech. That notebook had 3 client tabs dog-eared and underlined. The whales. The accounts with my name in the service agreement. Literally. Managed by Rachel Dempsey. I walked out with one bag. Mine. They thought they'd replaced a dispatcher. I knew they'd just cut the throat of their top 3 contracts. The second I hit my driveway, I went straight inside, tossed my keys on the counter, and grabbed the red accordion file from the back of the pantry shelf. Not labeled. Didn't need to be. I knew exactly what was inside. My employment agreement was in the front pocket. 5 years old, printed on ivory stock like that somehow made it worth more. I flipped through to Clause 11, then stopped at C. There it was. In the event of termination without cause, all associated non-solicit clauses are voided, and proprietary work product developed independently by the employee reverts to the employee immediately. I sat back in the kitchen chair and stared at it for a second. Then I leaned forward, grabbed my highlighter, and marked it up like I was prepping for a deposition. That clause was mine. I'd pushed for it back when we renegotiated my salary after the Southern Region expansion. HR didn't even blink. They thought I just wanted a little extra job security. They never asked why I wanted that clause. Right underneath it, I'd left a sticky note, curled at the edge, almost faded to white. Check 11C. I laughed, out loud. Then I opened the back pocket of the file and pulled out the real weapon. The 3 client agreements I'd personally closed. Each one with a key handler clause, signed and initialed. Client A. Cargo oversight guaranteed by Rachel Dempsey. Any reassignment requires prior written approval or contract may be voided. Client B. Continuity of assigned logistics handler is material to performance. Client C. Shall remain under Rachel Dempsey's direct management. There was no wiggle room. No, maybe. No, we'll transition and let you know. They fired me. Those clients, they could walk immediately, and I knew they would. I pulled out my laptop, opened the backups I'd kept updated every quarter like clockwork. Not on company servers, but my own encrypted drive. Clean copies of every service tier I built, every customized freight lane, every seasonal rate I negotiated under the table with preferred carriers. They thought they could automate my job. Let's see a script handle 37 irregular shipping requests with live reroute contingencies during a blizzard in Missouri. They didn't just cut me loose. They yanked the damn fuse out of a logistics grenade and tossed it under their own desk. I was already laying out the next steps in my head. Print clean copies of the key handler agreements. Highlight the trigger language. Assemble client contact logs. Document delivery performance for each quarter I ran solo. They could talk tech all they wanted. I was the operating system for those routes. And the second those clients realized I was gone, that system would crash. I grabbed a fresh legal pad, wrote fireback at the top, underlined it twice, then started listing everything I'd need. Clean contracts, trigger clause, highlighted route performance logs, client success call summaries, backup emails from procurement. I didn't have to bluff. I didn't have to guess. I built the damn house. They just ripped out the foundation and lit a match. And I was the only one holding the fire extinguisher. 2 days later, my phone buzzed while I was cross-referencing freight tables in my dining room. "You're gonna want to hear this," came the text from Wade, my guy still stuck in the routing office. I called him. No small talk. He started laughing, dry and sharp. "Your replacement plan?" It was a company-wide email blast, sent from the regional manager's assistant. No subject line. Just a link to a pre-recorded Zoom and a PDF titled New Dispatch Process Overview. "You're kidding." "Nope. No live contact. No route handoffs. No rechecks. Just click and hope." I didn't say a word. I just let the silence hang. Wade filled it. They didn't even assign a new handler for Client 1. Not a person. Just a generic mailbox. Let me guess. Clients got the same thing? Oh yeah. Same blast. No call. No heads up. I didn't need a crystal ball. That client, the biggest one, had legal teams tighter than a drum. By 3:42 that afternoon, Wade forwarded me a screenshot. Subject: Notice of termination per clause. 14A body. Due to the unapproved change in assigned logistics handler, we are terminating the current service agreement effective immediately. That was Client 1. $4 million in freight, gone with one email. I stared at the screen, then went into the kitchen. I pulled out butter, sugar, pecans. Baked a pie like it was Sunday at Grandma's, but instead of a lattice crust, I melted chocolate and piped 4 words across the top. Cost of cutting corners. I took a picture, saved it to a folder titled Lessons. Didn't send it, didn't need to. The next morning, I checked the dispatch portal out of habit. Client 1's tracking board was empty. No inbounds, no pickups, no quotes. Crickets. Except it wasn't quiet. Not really. You work freight long enough, you know the difference between silence and panic. This was the kind that starts slow and spreads under the surface, like someone trying not to scream underwater. By noon, I had 3 anonymous LinkedIn views and a message from a project manager I barely remembered. It just said, "Hey, what's your availability looking like lately?" HQ didn't make a sound. Not one email, not one call. They were hoping to plug the leak before anyone noticed. Too late. Client 1 didn't terminate because they felt neglected. They terminated because I'd written the clause myself. Key logistics handler reassignment triggers immediate termination rights. Their lawyer didn't even have to interpret it. It was underlined in the signed copy. They had every legal right to walk. And they did. I wiped down the counter, boxed up the pie, and slid it into the freezer. That pie wasn't for them. It was for me. Proof that I wasn't being petty, I was being precise. I knew the cracks would spread. HQ was sitting on a dry field, throwing sparks, pretending the wind wouldn't blow. They thought I was replaceable, that they could cut me loose and jam in a software update and a slick email and call it innovation. But freight doesn't run on buzzwords. It runs on people who know how to reroute a driver stuck in Nebraska with a busted axle and a frozen load timer. I didn't say anything to anyone at HQ. I didn't need to. 1 contract had fallen, 2 more to go. And I had the recipes for those too. 9 days later, my phone buzzed again. "Wade, no text this time, just a call." I answered before the first ring finished. "They just lost Client 2, he said. Voice flat. "How bad?" "Same as 1. Cited key handler clause, immediate termination. Email came through this morning. Legal's already looped in." I didn't say anything right away. I was thinking about the winter of 2011, the diesel shortage, the snow, the way half the carriers pulled out of the mountain lanes. Client 2 was bleeding money back then. Dispatch kept kicking the can. I flew out to Montana myself with 3 alternate routes drawn by hand, built from scrap data and backhaul maps no one else bothered to track. That saved their contract. And now it was dead because someone at HQ didn't know enough to pick up the damn phone. Wade added, "You should have seen the email chain." Subject line said, "Notice of immediate termination, logistics reassignment." Same wording, different signature. I hung up. Didn't curse, didn't yell. Just walked out to the freezer, pulled the pie box, and dropped it in the trash. One down, two gone. I opened my laptop. The client dashboards were bone dry. You could see it in the lane maps. No activity, no pings from the fleet. Dead space. Then, 4 days later, I got a push notification from one of my old shared folders. Client 3 had deactivated their access. Didn't even wait for renewal. I texted Wade again. 3 gone? He didn't respond with words, just sent a skull emoji. Inside report started leaking. Wade said they were calling it expected churn. Right. And I guess 3 multi-million-dollar contracts walking out the door in 13 days is just spring cleaning now. He told me the regional manager was trying to schedule emergency strategy calls with whatever clients were left. Everyone pretending this was part of the transition plan. Meanwhile, driver dispatch times were slipping. Live route coverage went from 98% to 81% in a week. Freight delays, misrouted shipments, customer service calls piling up. That's when I got the email. From Assistant to Exec VP Pew company name. Subject: Urgent request. Client engagement framework. Hi Rachel, hope you're well. We're looking to continue client service continuity, and we're wondering if you could please send over your engagement framework, contact cadence, and any standardized communication workflows used with legacy clients. Appreciate your help. Jenna. I'd never spoken to her in my life, not once. She thought she was being polite. I read it twice, closed the laptop, stood up, walked into the other room, and opened the fireproof safe. Inside was the licensing agreement. Annual renewal. Signed every January since 2016. Right under the heading, Engagement and Retention Framework, Proprietary Use Agreement, Third-Party Licensing. Clause B, license expires immediately upon termination of the agreement holder. They didn't own it, they just used it. And the moment they canned me, that usage right went up in smoke. They weren't just bleeding clients. They were bleeding with no tourniquet and still asking where I kept the gauze. I walked back to the kitchen, poured coffee, and stared at the email. I didn't respond. I archived it. Then I opened a new folder on my desktop and named it Request Logs, Unauthorized. Because that was the first one, but it wouldn't be the last. I didn't even wait until morning. That night, I cleared the dining table, grabbed every file from the bottom drawer of my home office, and laid it all out. Paper by paper, signature by signature. Invoices, licensing agreements, signed delivery logs, annotated freight paths with timestamps, even driver handoff notes. Centerpiece of the spread. The original doc with the title Employee Originated Route and Retention Model. Stamped, signed. My initials at the bottom. Performance review from Q4 of last year highlighted the same phrase. Proprietary method resulting in 98% route stickiness across client tiers. I wasn't the one calling it proprietary. They were, their own words. I had one file open when my phone buzzed. Unknown number, local area code. I answered. Rachel Dempsey. The voice was tight, fast. This is CEO David Lemley. I need to speak with you immediately about your failure to return protected company property and breach of confidentiality post-termination. No hello, no small talk. Just a legal shotgun blast out the gate. I didn't flinch. David, I said, calm as still water. You might want to reread the agreement before throwing around breach language, especially Clause 11, Section C. He cut me off. You're in violation of, I raised my voice, not loud, just firm. Let's have counsel in the room. Silence. I let it sit. I'm available tomorrow, 10 a.m. You set the meeting. I'll bring my documents. We'll walk through it together, line by line. I'll be prepared. Another pause. Then, fine. He hung up. I stood there a second, phone still in my hand. Then I put it down, folded the last document, and slid it into the folder marked Leverage. By morning, I had a calendar invite from his executive assistant. Subject line, urgent. Review of IP ownership and return compliance. That told me everything. They weren't sure. They thought they had me cornered. They didn't realize they were the ones under the lights. I didn't dress like I was going to a meeting. I dressed like I was going to war. Black blazer, hair up, clean folder. Backup USB in the side pocket of my bag, just in case they tried to pull a fast one. I parked right across from the building, not in visitor parking. I wanted them to see I didn't hesitate. Took the elevator up, no nerves, just one thought circling in my head. They started this. I finish it. The receptionist didn't even ask who I was. Just pointed toward the hallway like they'd been briefed. 3rd floor, glass conference room, frosted edges, but not enough to block the tension inside. I opened the door myself. CEO was already seated, flipping a pen between his fingers like he thought it made him look relaxed. VP sat stiff beside him, arms crossed so tight it looked like he was trying to squeeze blood from his own wrists. HR rep. She couldn't stop adjusting her notepad and clicking her pen. Then there was legal, mid-40s, square glasses, already skimming documents like he was hunting for fire exits. No one said hello. I stepped in, shut the door, and placed 2 things on the table. My original employment agreement, and the folder marked Root Logic Licensing, Final. Let's keep this efficient, I said. I flipped open the contract, found the right page, and slid it across to legal. Clause 11, subsection C. He took it without speaking. The room went dead quiet except for paper rustling. His eyes moved fast at first, then slower, then they stopped. He backed up half a line, read it again. His lips started moving. Upon termination without cause. He looked up at me, then kept reading aloud. All non-solicitation provisions void. Employee retains exclusive rights to employee-originated accounts. Any unauthorized use triggers contractual infringement. Silence. Even the AC unit kicking on sounded louder than anyone breathing. I didn't sit down. I leaned forward and tapped the second tab. Exhibit B. He flipped to it. Title in bold. Dispatcher-originated accounts. Rachel Dempsey. Line after line. Client names, signatures, and the clause linking them to my oversight. Legal's lips moved again, but slower this time. Then he looked at the CEO. Did you know this was in here? CEO didn't answer, just stared at the page like it might start apologizing on his behalf. VP spoke first. This was supposed to be covered under company-developed systems. IP created during employment belongs to the company. Standard policy. I didn't look at him. I looked at counsel. Page 12, Addendum 3, I said. That was negotiated outside standard policy. It's tied to the licensing agreement. He flipped, scanned, and stopped. You could practically hear the gears grinding. She's right, he muttered. It's cross-referenced with the annual third-party license agreement. It's not internal IP. It's licensed. HR dropped her pen. CEO finally spoke. We were using that framework before. No, counsel cut in. You were using it under license. Every signed renewal says so. The moment she was terminated, the license expired. VP leaned forward, still trying. But the engagement model's built into our active system. It's already in use. I cut him off this time. So is Netflix. Doesn't mean you get to stream it after canceling your subscription. Counsel didn't even laugh, just nodded. The CEO stared at the papers like he wanted them to rearrange themselves. I slid the folder labeled Route Logic Licensing closer to counsel. Everything you're still running was built from that. You've been reusing post-termination. He didn't say a word. He just kept reading. No one blinked. No one spoke. Because they were starting to understand. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was breach. And I brought the receipts. I let them sit in the silence. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Counsel kept flipping back and forth between pages like the paper might somehow rewrite itself. Then I reached into my bag and pulled out 2 envelopes, one red, one white. I placed them on the table, side by side. 2 options, I said. You choose. I tapped the red one. Option A. Hire me back as a private contractor. $8.50 an hour, 200-hour minimum. Licensing reinstated at triple the previous rate. No residuals, no bonuses. Just clean functional terms. The VP scoffed, but he didn't speak. I tapped the white one. Option B, I walk. Already accepted an offer from a mid-size firm across town. They know what I bring. They're ready to scale. My 3 legacy clients signed transition paperwork this morning. The CEO blinked like he'd been slapped. What clients? You know which ones. That's when the VP finally exploded. This is extortion. He slapped the table so hard HR jumped. You're holding internal data hostage, making demands based on stolen. I didn't say a word. I looked at counsel. He sighed, slow and heavy, flipped the contract to the right page, read it out loud. All engagement methods, route logic frameworks, and dispatcher-originated client processes shall remain the intellectual property of the license holder unless separately acquired through formal agreement. Then he added, quiet but clear, it's not company property. It never was. You assumed. VP shoved his chair back. This is insane. No one flagged that clause. Counsel didn't even look at him. That's why you read every page, especially when the other party wrote it. HR looked like she wanted to disappear into her own notebook. I pushed both envelopes forward, just a couple inches. I don't care which one you open, but you have 5 minutes. After that, the firm I'm going to gets exclusivity. The VP stood up. No words, just rage walking. I watched him go. The door slammed behind him. Counsel took a deep breath. Well? He pulled the red envelope closer, didn't open it yet, just rested his hand on top. CEO still hadn't moved. He looked like someone yanked the power out of his spine. I broke the silence. You didn't fire a dispatcher. You cut off the nerve center. And now you want the system back without the operator. The red envelope made a soft slide sound as counsel moved it toward the center. I'll review both, he said, voice quiet. But I already know which one costs less. That was the moment it all shifted. Not with yelling, not with threats, with understanding. They didn't have a leverage problem. They had a receipts problem. And every one of mine had a signature at the bottom, theirs. They didn't touch the envelopes again. They were trying to save face. An analyst shuffled in 10 minutes later, young, blazer too big, laptop already open. He took the seat the VP had abandoned and started typing like his life depended on it. Okay, he said, nervous. If we use last year's freight volume on those 3 clients alone, trailing 12 months revenue is just over $3.9 million per account. So? He paused, tapped a few keys, then swallowed. That's roughly $11.7 million for the 2.5x buyout. CEO finally moved. That can't be right. Counsel didn't even look at him. It's in the contract. Page 15, paragraph 4. You signed it. Silence. Again. Then I leaned down, unzipped my side pocket, and slid another folder across the table. Here, I said. These are the server logs. Counsel opened it and froze halfway through the first page. Read the timestamps. He did. Then checked the column marked User ID. His eyebrows pulled together. These are internal accesses. From last week. Correct. I tapped the line with the file name. Route logic override matrix.pdf downloaded 5 times after I was terminated. Each time that document was opened, I said, your team breached the licensing agreement. You don't just owe the buyout, you owe damages. He didn't speak, just sat there blinking. HR leaned forward, whispering something, trying to salvage tone. Counsel waved her off and kept reading. Then it slipped out. Oh my God. Not dramatic, not sarcastic. Flat, real. Like he was already tallying up the legal disaster. I didn't blink, didn't raise my voice. Instead, I pulled out one last sheet and placed it in front of him. A scanned memo, signed by the board, stamped 2 years ago. Subject: Renewal of third-party IP licensing agreement. Dempsey Framework Council read the heading, then the signature line, then leaned back like he needed to breathe through his shirt collar. I waited. Let the paper sit. Let the numbers settle like dust. Because there wasn't anything left to say. They hadn't just fired me. They'd kept using the system after the license expired. Used my logic, my models, my documents, and now they owed me for every minute of it. 10 million was just the start. The papers sat there like a ticking clock. The CEO stared at them for a long time, then finally spoke, voice low, like he already knew the answer. What would it take to make this stop? I didn't say a word. I just tapped the white envelope. Option B. That one. No one reached for it. No one needed to. They'd already read it in their heads. The VP pushed back into the room like he was ready for a second round. His tie was loose now, sweat creeping under the collar. This whole thing's a bluff, he snapped. She can't actually enforce. Counsel cut in, sharp. It's not yours. 3 words. That's all it took to shut him up. HR cleared her throat, barely above a whisper. We did reuse her files. She didn't look at anyone. We accessed all the root sheets. Everyone was tagged under her framework. The CEO dropped his pen. I reached into my folder one last time, brought out the final 2 pieces. First, the strategy session slide deck from last year, with a full page titled Root Logic Dependency, Dempsey Model. Second, the original board memo from 2019, underlined twice. Third-party licensing, not internal asset. I slid both across the table. They landed next to the unopened red envelope. No one argued this time. No one moved. Counsel just nodded slowly, reached for a blank invoice sheet, and started writing. The scratching of his pen was the only sound in the room. It sounded like surrender, like someone doing math in real time and realizing how far they'd already sunk. Nobody looked at me, not anymore. They didn't need to. I'd made my point, and now they were doing what they should have done before they ever leaned on automation, paying for what they broke. I pulled the final invoice from my folder, typed, dated, line-itemed, signed. Buyout, IP infringement, post-termination use, deadline, Friday, 5 p.m. I slid it across the table. It landed like a cinder block. This, I said, tapping the total, is the line you thought would control me. Then I flipped to clause 11C, laid my finger on the first sentence, and tapped again. Counsel nodded once. Quiet. No fight left in his eyes. The CEO stared at the number like it had personally insulted him. VP opened his mouth, thought better of it, and finally did what he should have done 2 meetings ago. Shut up. I stood. I didn't build this for you, I said, looking straight at the CEO. Those clients? They didn't pick your logo. They picked me. Nobody argued. Nobody tried to spin it. They knew. The engine was never theirs. They'd just been riding it. I walked out without shaking a hand. Elevator down, no backward glance. The sun outside felt sharp and clean. My rival's welcome packet was already waiting in the passenger seat of my truck. Contract, laptop, keycard, onboarding kit. I didn't rush, didn't gloat, just turned the key, rolled out of the lot, and left the past right where it belonged, behind me. By the time they wired the money, I was on a strategy call with my new team, sketching out route optimization plans on a whiteboard. No drama, no second chances, just arithmetic. And they read every number I gave them.